Did you know you can eat 1,000 grams of protein right now, and you can absorb all of it?
Just by my enzyme.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Don't Look Up, where we ask you to look up. We talk about cutting-edge topics in science, technology, medicine. I'm an internal medicine doc, and I've been in the medicine world for a long time. Boomer's been in the biohacking wellness, and we just do this thing together on a weekly basis for you, for us, really. It's really
And for fun.
And for fun, yeah.
And so today we're going to pick apart protein.
I have a story here, I guess, to start us off. Because look, protein is kind of a big deal. It's a very, very important macronutrient, okay? And I had a story told to me recently by a lady who's a researcher in the world of nutrition. And she's like, I could make my mom live longer, maybe, with some of these newer clocks out there. We can talk about those later. I could extend her methylation age if I make her go very low protein and, very much like a vegan kind of diet. But then she starts losing all her muscle mass and she falls and she breaks her hip. Mortality rate within 5 years of breaking your hip is like 70%. It's ridiculous. And that's why there's been such an emphasis on it. And I think it's important because sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle as we get older, is a big deal. Because if you lose muscle, you lose strength and you lose function. So it is an important macronutrient. The question I get from a lot of my patients is like, well, what's the most important, macronutrient? I'm like, they're all important, right? It's a matter of what you're getting, what kind of macronutrient, what your sources are, and then what your balance is, depending on shocking the life cycle of your organism, Boomer.
Oh gosh, this gets into our little definition of health. So
yes.
Remember, our backdrop and how we sort of look at the world is health optimization medicine. And in health optimization medicine, we have a simple definition for health, A plus B plus C. And this isn't going to get into linear algebra, folks. It's just simple. It's A, which is the absence of disease, and B is the balance of anabolic and catabolic processes in the body. This is sort of where protein comes in.
For sure.
But also C is through the life cycle of the organism, meaning for your age, but also can we bring that to your evolutionary optimized levels between the ages of 21 to 30? But I want to go into protein here.
Let's talk about
and let's start from the dark side of protein. What happens if you go low protein? How does your body compensate for that?
So your body tries to compensate. It's going to slow down your metabolism, first of all. So your capacity to make energy is going to go down. You're going to increase your hunger overall because really what protein is doing, it's all of your connective tissue requires protein to be able to make. And so if you're not getting enough, you're going to feel hungry to try to get more of it. So you might eat more carbohydrates thinking you need those, but it's not going to satisfy your hunger because you need more protein. It's also going to elevate your cortisol level too. It's going to also you're starting to break down muscle for fuel too in general. And that's going to tank your mood and motivation, man. So then as a result of that, you have all these things that are happening sort of biochemically, anything from your hormones, especially to your neurotransmitters that start getting screwed up if you don't have enough.
So there's an interesting thing here. When we start looking at this and sort of the downstream effects and you start saying like, hey, my mood's screwed up, I'm eating all the time. Some of this might actually play a role in, or some of the fact that you have low protein diet might actually play a role in those items.
Yep.
But when we start looking at, the science behind protein, protein itself helps you feel more satiety, full.
Makes me feel,
it activates, some of these hormones, GLP-1 sort of one that,
like GLP-1s, yeah.
Yep, and it helps stabilize blood sugar, right? And so one of these things that we want to get into here is a little bit about the science behind protein. Let's take somebody through, when you digest protein, what's actually going on there?
So when you digest protein, you're going to go and digest it into its component parts, which are called amino acids. And amino acids are the building blocks of your connective tissue, of your organs, of your muscle, and they power parts of your mitochondria, parts of your cell. You do not have enough of those, you're going to have depletions and those kinds of things. And what can happen is that if you're not getting enough in yourself, what happens is that the part of your cell that is making energy in your mitochondria, called your citric acid cycle, your Krebs cycle, it has all these intermediates in there that are able to compensate for a little while if you're not getting enough protein in your diet. They'll actually shift you from making more energy to shift you to making enough protein to sustain your musculoskeletal and then your overall capacity from a protein perspective. But that only is going to happen for a certain amount of time until you start breaking down.
All right, so we've now talked a little bit about protein in terms of how it breaks down and constituent amino acids. Let's talk about neurotransmitters. How does this play a role in neurotransmitter function?
Yeah, so the big thing here is that most of our neurotransmitters are built on proteins. Serotonin, it's built from tryptophan, okay? So yes, there is tryptophan in turkey, but you do not fall asleep from the tryptophan in turkey. You fall asleep because you just had a huge caloric load dumped.
You mean to tell me the 2,000 calories of turkey, it wasn't the tryptophan?
The 2,000 calories of mostly potato casserole, whatever, what the potato, what's the one with like the marshmallows on top? Like that's what my kids love. It's
Stuffing.
It's the stuffing, and there's also
Marshmallows on
There's
top.
marshmallows on top of sweet potato. What is it called? Sweet potato pie. Not sweet potato pie, whatever. It's something like that. My kids love it.
I should come to Thanksgiving at the Sherr household.
It's good. It's a sugar bomb. It's a huge sugar bomb. So it's like 90% other things, and then like the 10% turkey that you eat, right? But
Perfect. I'll bring the berberine.
Perfect. Yeah. And maybe we can fry the turkey in the backyard. Awesome. But you have tryptophan, which is the precursor to serotonin. And you have tyrosine, which is the precursor to dopamine and norepinephrine. And you have another one called glutamine, which is your precursor by way of another neurotransmitter called glutamate into your GABA system. Glutamine, by the way, is also your primary fuel of your small intestine. So if you're not getting enough glutamine in your diet, for example, which comes from meat sources mostly, you're not able to fuel your small intestine. So what happens? Your intestine gets leaky, inflamed. And the best example of this actually is in people that like to do a lot of exercise. You've watched somebody do a marathon and you see like something dripping down their leg as they're going, they're pooping themselves, right? They're having diarrhea. They have a massive inflammatory load in the gut because all the glutamine that is supposed to be fueling the gut is going to their muscles to try to help maintain muscle function after a huge amount of exercise. And then all of a sudden they get like a massively leaky gut and they start pooping themselves.
This is why, ladies and gentlemen, this is why you wear spandex when you're running a marathon. Like
spandex?
Spandex.
So you just gotta keep the poop inside?
And I'm listening to Jane Fonda too. But it's I don't know if spandex is a thing anymore. Tights is what people call it. Let's talk about protein and immune system strength. We've already talked about protein when it comes to muscle, right? But like, let's talk about protein and immune system strength.
Yeah, this is big. So like you make your antibodies. These are the types of immune cells or immune components that are important to fight infection. So if you don't have enough protein around, you're not going to be able to make enough antibodies. This is your B cells. You also can't repair as well if you don't have enough protein around. This is that connective tissue. This is the I call it the sort of the scaffolding of our tissue. That's what protein is so important for. So if you don't have enough of it, you can't repair, and you can't actually modulate your inflammation and decrease it if you don't have enough protein around as well. So your cells aren't just feeling weak. It's like they don't just have enough parts to actually make them function well.
All right. So in the interest of time, let's kind of button things up a little bit here. We've talked a little bit about protein as it relates to longevity. We've talked about protein as a macronutrient and how it helps you feel full. There's also something called the thermogenic effect of protein. What we didn't cover here was different types of protein. That's probably a subject for another video.
Sure.
We talked about how protein metabolizes into amino acids and how it has effects on anything from your immune system to neurotransmitter function, et cetera. Right. And why it is, all macronutrients are important, but it is indeed an important macronutrient. Yeah. So just remember, you don't just feel weak. It's likely if you're on a low protein diet or, for example, just not consuming protein, you're just probably missing some constituent parts.
Yeah, what I would say here too is that there is like a dime a dozen as far as diets and like the gym bro macro thing now, which is certainly protein. And look, if you want to build muscle, you do need to eat more protein. This is well established, okay? What is the maximum that you need? What is the minimum? Everybody's going to be different here. A lot of it depends on your exercise and your age. As we talked about with Boomer just mentioned, the life cycle, as we get older, we're going to shift from what's called anabolism or building up to catabolism, which is the breaking down. So we are going to naturally lose more muscle as we get older. So we have to increase the amount of protein that you eat. But if you're going to have a lot of protein, you also need to exercise. Protein itself is insulinogenic, which means if you have a lot of protein in your diet and you're not moving around, your blood sugar is going to go up too, by the way. So I have patients now, as everything happens, right, where they started off and now they're like, oh, I've increased my protein a lot, but I'm not exercising. And they're like insulin resistant. I'm like, dude, what's going on here? It's because
I've got somebody like that in my family.
Yeah, exactly. So people will often talk about like protein's like your free macronutrient. You can have as much of it as you want. No. And
call him bullshit.
Yeah. Nothing in life is free except for the birds and bees, or that's the opposite. The best things in life are free. Except for the birds and bees.
I'm trying to find something right now that's free. There's a lot of free opt-ins, but you give them your data, and so that's not really
free smiles. Free smiles.
Exactly. All right, so let's kind of wrap this up here. I think, as you said, nothing in life is free, and even protein can have some downsides. If you're eating too much of it and you're not exercising, you can certainly have side effects like becoming insulin resistant.
Right.
You can also, quality value protein also matters here. But it's, at the end of the day, like, protein is not necessarily an aesthetic choice. Really, it's something that is required by your body in order to operate, function, and perform well.
Thanks so much for everybody listening to an episode of Don't Look Up, where we ask you to look up. Don't forget to comment below. We'd love to hear how much protein you're eating on a daily basis, how huge your muscles are. You can send your pictures to Boomer on his OnlyFans account.
Onlyfans.com/Boomer. By the way, Scott, I think we're going to go out for steak tonight, right?
Steak, baby.
All right.
Okay. Take care, everybody.